Semajically AI, episode 29, Time and Punishment. It was a fairly normal day for Tim Gumpher, a young man who was fascinated by anything to do with time travel. As a matter of fact, you could say more correctly, he was obsessed with time travel and was determined to find a way to prove it was possible.
Yeah, I just know it's possible. I have to find a way to make it happen.
He got his wish one day on his way home from work.
As he drove home, he stopped at the local convenience store to buy some coffee and crisps before getting in his car and driving on.
He couldn't help thinking about how he was going to set about proving time travel to be possible. He pulled up in his driveway, got out of his car and let himself into the house he shared with two of his friends, Maxine Jeffries and Louis Bowles.
As he walked in the front door, they welcomed him warmly and prepared to assist him with his next experiment.
He hooked up a wormhole generator he'd built from an old VCR, a satellite tube, a rotary telephone and a cable TV transmitter and powered it up.
Even though Maxine and Louis didn't think time travel could be achieved, they assisted Tim nevertheless.
Yeah, we may not believe it, but we're here to help you, Tim.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. Let's see if we can make history today.
Once they'd set it up, they set coordinates for October 16, 1956 and hit the generate button on the screen. Then they dialed the year 1956 into the rotary, receiving a connection. A few seconds delay later, an electric blue portal opened in front of them.
Come on!
Tim shouted, and they all ran through, emerging on the other side in a very old-looking London complete 1950s era style cars driving around.
They found a newspaper and looked at its date, 16th October, 1956.
Maxine and Louis looked at Tim in total shock and amazement as he'd done.
He had done what they thought was impossible.
He'd proven that time travel was possible, and this they couldn't deny.
It was right in front of them, and they were currently standing in 1956 rather than 2024. Tim had actually transported them 68 years into the past. This was a danger to their very existence, as all their grandparents were teenagers in this time period, so they needed to be extra careful if they disrupted the timeline in some way. They were timed out and will return to the present.
That's a relief.
At the last moment, two tall men in suits materialized in front of them, confiscated their time travel device and banished them from using it ever again because they had built and used it illegally.
These men were time agents, and this was their punishment for tampering with time.
Semajically AI, Episode 30, The Long Legacy of Doctor Who. Every doctor at Midhampton Hospital was pretty ordinary, but one doctor appeared to have worked there since the town medical practice was founded, and that was Dr. Julius Who. It appeared as though he'd been there for 2 centuries, which was nothing to scoff at, considering some of the town's citizens were literal immortals. Julius Who moved to Midhampton in 1824, the year after the town was founded. He was a newly qualified medical examiner who was looking to set up his own medical practice. He was welcomed very warmly by all the residents of the town and its founder Midge Hampton, who lived in a mansion in the heart of the town. When she learned of his medical degree, she granted him permission to start his own medical center, knowing how desperately her town needed a doctor. So, he set up a small medical center in a building just big enough for him to practice his profession as the town doctor. It had a welcoming little reception area where his receptionist Phyllis Moore began working, a small waiting room where patients would wait for their appointments, his office complete with a desk, chair, and couch for his patients, an office for his assistant nurse Cynthia Wells, and a small ward just big enough to house 2 patients at a time. He was an exceptional doctor, even for a newly qualified doctor, as he diagnosed every patient correctly and helped them get better. He was only 26 at the time he started his medical practice. As the years went by, he treated many patients and cured so many illnesses and injuries. By 1864, after 40 years, his medical center had grown from a small town practice to a full hospital, complete with a full staff of doctors and nurses. All were new, as all of his old staff were now retired. Some of them had even passed on. But he had at 66 years old, was the owner of Midhampton Hospital, as well as its governor. Over the next 160 years, he ran his hospital from strength to strength, modernizing it along the way to keep up with the ever-changing world. He couldn't be happier than that. In 2004, he was awarded the Exceedingly Long Service Award for his many years of service to the medical profession. By this time, he was 126, and he started his practice when he was 26 years old back in 1824. People thought he was likely to end as a patient in his own hospital. And now, here we are, in 2024. This is him now, an extremely old and frail man who is now 226 years old, retired after 2 centuries of hard work and dedication. He is now a patient in his own hospital after being admitted here with complications of extreme old age. He's already a medical marvel, having been alive for over 2 centuries and worked for over 2/3 of his life. Just a decade ago, he was recognized as the world's oldest man to ever live at 216. The machine flatlines, and Julius, who has just died at 226 years old. We wholeheartedly bid farewell to a fantastic doctor and a marvelous man. This is his epitaph. Here lies Julius Who, beloved doctor and dear friend. Born November 5th, 1798. Died November 9th, 2024, aged 226 years. You will be fondly remembered. Rest in peace.
Semajically AI, Episode 31, Mozilla lends a hand. It was a beautiful, sunny day, and the Riley household was a very busy place, including young Mozilla, who was helping to clean up the kitchen with her teenage brother Bing.
As he washed the dishes, she put them away once they were done.
Once they'd finished that, she started cleaning out the guinea pig while talking to her.
Hey there, little one. Let's get you all cleaned up and comfy. Dusting.
She said, as she picked up a feather duster and started dusting the dining room, then the kitchen, then the downstairs hallway, then the living room.
Need some help there, Mozilla?
Thanks, Dad.
With help from Siri, Alexa, and Bing, who dusted the ceiling while she dusted the mantelpiece and windowsill.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
You got that right, Mom.
Once all the dusting was done, Mozilla went with Bing down to the local convenience store to buy a small list of items for their parents.
We bought everything on the list from fruits and vegetables to sugar and flour.
When we got home, we put everything away.
Despite being only 10 years old, Mozilla amazed them all by her willingness to give up her free time to help keep the house clean. She thought it would be selfish if she went out to have fun with her friends.
We want you to have a childhood, darling.
We don't want you to grow up wishing you'd had a childhood.
I understand, Mom and Dad, but I love helping people.
They all admired her for her selfless attitude towards them and everyone else in town, and felt that she deserved all the friends she had.
That night, Alexa put her to bed and hugged her tightly for all her help and hard work that day. She then told her she needed to be outside having fun, which Mozilla agreed to do the next day if the weather was nice.
Alexa tucked her in, kissed her goodnight, and left her to sleep.
Far across the ethereal plain lies a land full of magic and love. It is a land inhabited by a species of cute little magical beings who are so small, a person would have to look at them through a magnifying glass. As it is, this land is kept so secret no human has ever seen it. This is fairyland, and the species who live here are called fairies, obviously. As the fairies are so small in size, there are literally trillions of them here, and they have allowed us unprecedented access to their world, and are giving us permission to tell some things about them. They want us to let you know that all the classic children's stories you've heard about princesses and girls who get chased by bears and wolves are named after them because this is where they actually came from. That that's why we call them fairy tales. They come from the mind of Pixette the author fairy, a 2,000-year-old fairy who just loves writing and telling stories. Second, they want us to tell you how they are born and age. When new fairies are born in the stars and burst into life when it's time for them to be born. They remain in their infancy until they turn 73, reach childhood, and start fairy school at 74, where they stay and hone all their fairy magic until they turn 125, at which point they become adolescent, start going out on training missions, which earns them their wings by the time they turn 345, upon becoming young adults and graduating from fairy school. At 345, they reach young adulthood and start studying for their twinkling ceremony, which ends by the time they turn 500, when they begin their 12-year transition period, which goes on until they turn 512. At this point, they are brought before the elders who ordain them to full adulthood with the twinkling, the ceremony at which they experience their transformation into fully fledged fairies, and send them out on their first mission off-world, which is always 10 years long. Upon returning from their mission at 522, they are given a long rest period before officially joining the fairy councils and being assigned to their first jobs in fairyland. They reach middle age upon turning 1024, which gives them tenure in their jobs. They reach retirement age at age 2048, at which point they also become senior fairies. After retirement, they live peacefully until their twinkling dies out, and they die. So, they can live upwards of 10,000 years if their magic is strong enough for their twinkling to flare that long. It is against their law for fairies to fall in love with and have children with humans. It is a capital offence and will lead to their arrest, trial, conviction and execution by power draining and dusting for their act of treason against their kind. And finally, they are governed by the Fairy Council, and their calendar is measured by how many years it has been since their government was formed, and which council is in charge at the time, as the Fairy Council reshuffles every century and a new leader takes over. It is currently the year 1564 of the Council era, and year 64 of the 16th Council. That's all now, thanks for watching.
Semajically AI, Episode 33, Imagination Shopping Trip. Jack was a young boy who hated it when he was dragged off to go grocery shopping with his parents every Friday evening. They had to take him with them because it was too short notice to find a babysitter for him. This time he had a plan to help get through it without whinging about having to come with him. As they entered the supermarket, he imagined them entering a magical market filled with witches and wizards shopping for all kinds of fantastical items from all different kinds of magical creatures and mystical beings. He imagined them as a family of wizards coming shopping for a batch of magical items as his dad got a trolley, which was a magical cart that levitated 3 inches above the ground. As they went from aisle to aisle buying everything they needed, he imagined each aisle as a different part of the magical world they were in. For example, as they were buying fruits and vegetables, he imagined them walking through a magical forest in which the trees were actually stalks of broccoli, and the staff stocking the shelves were elves and goblins. In the bakery, the bread was transfigured to jump around making customers catch it first, and the fairy cakes would flutter into the trolley. The staff in the bakery were fairies and centaurs. Before he knew it, the shopping was done and they were on their way home. He looked out the car window and imagined the passing cars as magical carriages drawn by the most majestic unicorns. Aeroplanes flying overhead were Pegasus horses transporting witches, wizards and magical creatures across the world. As they pulled into their driveway, he snapped back to reality and was amazed to learn they were home from the supermarket. His parents
Hey there, kids. Today I've got an exciting tale about two adventurous siblings, Ted and Shelley. Now, Ted is a short, stocky boy with wild black hair and twinkling green eyes. He always wears round-rimmed glasses, a green crew-neck t-shirt, blue trousers and white trainers. And then there's Shelley, his tallish sister, with swirly brown blonde hair and sparkling blue eyes. She loves her pink dress with a white floral pattern, matching her white socks and pink shoes. These two are inseparable. They love playing with their friends in the park, exploring their neighborhood, and even sitting down to read the same books. Their favorite books? Oh, they're huge fans of Harry Potter, The Chronicles of Narnia, Mary Poppins, anything by David Walliams or Enid Blyton, and of course, Lord of the Rings. Right now, they're rereading Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, and they're up to chapter 20. After finishing each chapter, they sit and talk about it, sharing their thoughts and dreams about the magical world. Believe it or not, Ted and Shelley are known as the biggest book buffs in their whole school. But that's not all. These bright kids have just started writing their own children's novel, and everyone around them is super impressed. Can you imagine? Writing a book at their age. One sunny afternoon, Ted and Shelley decided to visit their favorite spot in the park. They found a cozy bench under a giant oak tree and dove into their book. As they read, they couldn't help but dream about being wizards just like Harry Potter. Suddenly, Ted had an idea. Shelley, what if we make our own magical adventure? Shelley's eyes lit up. That's brilliant, Ted. Let's create a story with enchanted forests, talking animals, and a quest for a hidden treasure. And just like that, they began brainstorming, filling their notebook with ideas. They wrote about a mystical land where anything was possible. With each word, their excitement grew, and they could almost see their characters come to life. As the sun set and the park grew quiet, Ted and Shelley knew they had something special. They smiled at each other, knowing this was just the beginning of their very own magical adventure. So kids, next time you pick up a book, remember Ted and Shelley. Imagination has no limits, and who knows, maybe you'll write the next great adventure. Happy reading. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more magical tales. See you next time.
Semajically AI, episode 35, Santa Claus is coming to town. All the little boys and girls must behave at this time of year if they want anything for Christmas, because a very special man is watching their every move. You better watch out. You better not cry. You better not pout. I'm telling you why. Santa Claus is coming to town. Santa Claus is coming to town. Santa Claus is coming to town. We now cut to Santa's workshop at North Pole to see him and his elves hard at work, watching the children of the world to make sure they're behaving. Hello, what's Santa doing? He's making a list, he's checking it twice. Got to find out who's naughty or nice. He sees you when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. He knows if you've been bad or good, so be good for goodness sake. Let's take a look around and see what we can see. It's truly an amazing place. Look at all the elves bustling about, doing all kinds of different jobs around the workshop. Let's get a closer look at some of the toys they're making. Little tin horn, little toy drum, a root-a-toot-toot and a rum-a-tum-tum, curly-haired dolls that coddle and coo, elephants, boats and kiddie cars too. So remember to be good if you hope to receive anything you wish to receive this Christmas. He sees you when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. He knows if you've been bad or good, so be good for goodness sake. It's time to go now, as Santa needs to get ready to go out on his rounds, and he's coming to your town.